Let's talk about flashbacks. If you've ever had one, you know how awful and terrifying they can be. A reliving of one of the worst or most scary moments of an entire life, or reliving of many of those different types of moments, a re-immersion into the trauma of the past. Why is this something that our brain creates? How is it supposed to help us? Well, in the moment of a traumatic encoding, our brain remembers all of the contextual cues as well as what's known as complex content elements of the moment. Everything that our sensory system is taking in, what we're witnessing, what we're seeing, smelling, hearing, tasting, touching, even what we're thinking or feeling in that moment. And interoception, what our body is doing in that moment. And any of those experiences in the future can trigger us into a flashback, a reliving of the moment. In the moment of a flashback, our brain is being taken over by the trauma stimuli. And there's a little part of our brain that keeps charge of how do we know where we are in time and space. And in a traumatic encoding, you betcha that part of our brain goes offline. And therefore, the past can feel like it's always present, especially if we're living through flashbacks. It's actually the title of Dr. Ron Rudin's great book, When the Past is Always Present, all about why havening works. So how do we help ourselves get back into the present moment if we're being hijacked into a state of threat and our little timekeeper is offline? Now, I've had flashbacks before, and I know it is no easy feat to find a way to ground ourselves back into the moment when our brain is being hijacked. Hijacked, that amygdala hijack. Now, a big part of creating space during a flashback is finding a way to engage our sensory system in a different way. There's very strong similarity in some respects to how we can ground ourselves out of flashbacks to how we ground ourselves out of dissociation. We can use ice cubes or really, really sour candy. I like to use warheads, sucking on a lemon even. That's a good representation in of itself of how our brain encodes and remembers things. If you've ever sucked on a really sour lemon before, imagine that you're doing that right now and notice if there's some sort of physiological or sensory change in your mind and your body. That is a day-to-day life version of a quote-unquote flashback. Our body and our brain remember things all of the time. And if we've survived really big things that our brain has now said, okay, I got to remember all of that data will get priority processing. And in fact, when that data becomes present, other parts of our system tied to how we are able to create a cohesive narrative or synthesize data in the present moment go offline. That's why the sensory interaction helps bring us back into the present moment. It's a shock to the system in a different way, allowing our system to reorient and go, whoa, that's really sour candy. That's a really, really sour lemon. Or wow, that ice is really, really cold, so that we can then come back to self and remember that we're here in the present moment. When our amygdala is running the show, there is no sense of time, and our amygdala speaks the 5 languages. So anything we can use to help redirect and bring us back into the present will help ground us out of the flashback. The great news is that then we can bring in that CPR for the amygdala protocol linked in the notes below to help us heal our brain proactively. Now, in my book, of course, that's an entire healing in your hands series of exercises so that you can proactively heal your brain. Because when we integrate that havening touch into the work that we're doing with specificity around the cognitive choices and exercises that we're guiding our system through, we can help our brain de-link those encoded experiences as well as build resilience and start to sculpt the brain that we want for the future.